Hello everyone, this is Melanie from Melanie B's Creative Studio, and I'm back again this week for another Schipper Sunday. And today I have one that you might be thinking, wait a minute, it's Christmas time. Why are we looking at an autumn painting? It is because I thought I had already brought you this gorgeous piece. But when I went through my stash and I was pulling ones out that I needed to do a Schipper Sunday on, I realized I had never even taken this one out of the packaging. So I was shocked because this is one of my favorite pieces. It is called At the Riverside, and you can imagine why. And it is a triptych. So what does that mean for those of you who are new? That means it comes in 3 different panels. So we have 3 sections to paint. Now I wanted to go ahead and have this video ready for the most part. So last weekend I opened this one up and I started getting the swatch ready for this particular video because I've been running behind so much lately that I have been not getting the videos published on time. And so when I did last week's Colorful World video, I went ahead and pulled this one out and I started getting it ready. And that is when I realized I'd had this kit for about 9 to 11 months. But it was actually kind of ideal because on my Facebook group, I have been having to help people who've been struggling with getting the Schipper kits that have really thick paints, and they're frustrated because they don't know what to do with them. And they're like, wait a minute, I've heard that Schipper has the best creamy fluid paints on the market, and this is not what I expected. So I wanted to make sure that I reserved one of the paint pots to show you what to do in that situation. And I know that I have kind of discussed that before, but I thought this was a perfect opportunity to not only show you what to do to revive that paint, but also to tell you how to handle it if it happens, how to contact Schipper, where to go, how they deal with it if that happens to you, and how to get that problem fixed through the company. So this is a good opportunity for that to happen. Now, it is not Schipper's fault that that happened for this particular kit because I held on to it. And in some situations, what happens is that because these kits are produced and they are shipped out to companies that may have them on their shelves for a while, then paints have a shelf life. And I'm not real sure what an actual shelf life will be for a paint. I have kits that I have opened the paint up a year later, a year and a half later, and the paints are still perfect. And then I have some that I've opened 3 months later and they're dry, or they're starting to get thick or dry. So I don't know that there's a real true rule of thumb for that. And I've noticed the Schipper paints hold up a long time because they are so fluid to begin with. So that is a good thing. But in this situation, I'm pretty sure I ordered this one from Hirschners.com, and I will put a link for that company in the bottom, in the description, so that you can find that company. But, I don't know how long it was on their shelf first, and then when I got it, I held on to it for 11 months, and I just finally opened it. So, it is not Schipper's fault that that happened. But thankfully, Schipper has great customer service. And even though they're in Germany, they are still going to cover their product with that customer service. So when I opened my paints, not only did I realize there had been a pot or 2 that had spilled in the original shipping and it was a mess in the bag, but I also had some dried up paints. And so, we're going to get to that in just a few minutes. I'm going to tell you how I solved the problem and work with it. But for right now, let's take a quick look at the contents, the panels, and all of that. And then we'll talk about what to do if you run into a problem with your paints or anything with your kit. So thankfully, because of the way that Schipper does package their paints in an envelope that is a clear bag, I didn't have to worry about the paints spilling on my panels, and they also placed the panels face down. So if there had been any spilling, it would have been on the back of the panels. If there had been major spilling and it had damaged the front of the paint by number portion, I would have just contacted Schipper. Schipper would have probably just replaced this entire kit. I'm sure they would have. I say probably, but I am confident they would have done that. So you can see there's nothing that got on my panels at all. And so that was a blessing. And for those who have not seen the Schipper Sundays or know what a triptych is, as I explained, a triptych means there are 3 different panels. The exterior panels are going to be your smaller ones. I'm going to pull these out using my fingernails. The middle panel is going to be a 16 by 20 size, approximately. It's a 40 by 50 centimeter. And the 2 exterior panels together are equivalent to 40 by 50 centimeters. So altogether, it basically equates to 2 40 by 50 centimeter projects. So that is how it works. And then when you're finished with your pieces, and they are marked, and I've got them backwards actually, because I don't have my glasses on. It says left and it says right. And so when you're done, you know, that's how they will display. You guys know from past videos, I do get a paintbrush and I had my number stickers. I've already gone ahead and numbered the paint pots. And if you're not sure how to do that, you can watch another video, because today I want to just focus on what to do for customer service purposes. Now you can see, I'll pull the catalog out and I'll pull out the other contents. You can see where I've already used my stickers. My reference guide is in here as well, which gave me my information about how to number my paint pots. But this is where, when I first pulled out my envelope, I realized I had a problem. And let me zoom in a little bit so we can take a closer look. So when I first pulled them out, this entire strip was covered with dry paint. And I could tell that it was, you know, these colors here. So I knew that these pots had to have been open at some point. Now they didn't seem to be opened when I got them out, so I wasn't sure. But what I did is I popped them open. I'm gonna try to be careful. And I pulled off with tweezers all of the dried paint from around the edges. Here's another one. You can see, and I'll do this one here, because you know what? I don't even know that I did this one. So I'm gonna just pull off any of the dried paint. And I left these for me to demonstrate with. And that is why I didn't completely clean it up for number 3. And you'll notice I've gone ahead and done the swatch, and I left number 3 blank so that I could show you how we're going to bring it back to life and make it perfect. And then we're going to swatch it. I haven't cleaned it. I haven't done anything to it to bring it back to life or anything. So that's what I'm going to do right now. Move some things out of the way. I'm going to grab a couple of little things and we are going to work with this paint. So I'm going to get in here a little bit closer. Now, it's funny because when I first opened these paints, this was like super dried and thick, but just me getting them out of the box and moving them around last weekend and then getting them out today has mixed the bottom with the top, and it looks like they're not like that anymore. And I don't know if you noticed from the beginning when I first opened it, and now it's already like mixed up more. I can't even explain how weird that is. I haven't touched this yet. I opened it up a minute ago. My husband called from work on his break and I came back to it and it's already looking better. And I'm like, okay, how am I supposed to explain how to fix dried up paint when it's fixing itself right now? Like, so I'm going to try to open up some others that I didn't have to swatch because they were duplicates and see if maybe I can find some to show you as an example, because that's going to ruin my example. But I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to try. So this is a lot more fluid than it was a minute ago, which is so weird. So I'm going to start by just showing you the consistency of it without adding anything yet. And I'm going to take one of my stainless steel stirrers. These are sold at Melanie B's Creative Supplies. And I have two different ones that I have recommended that Ashlyn have at her shop. So this is one of the two. Now I like to take, this is, I mean, I cannot believe how creamy this is right now. You guys saw it a minute ago when I pulled the dried paint out. Like, where did this come from? That's so weird. And I know it's because the fluid part from the bottom mixed with the top while I was moving them around last weekend, but this is insane just in the last little bit. Like, that is so weird. Anyway, okay, I'm sorry, I'm baffled right now. So I'm going to move these to the bottom, this to the bottom, and now this is very thick on the bottom. I'm going to try to keep the stick out of the way so you can see what I'm talking about. It's not dried like I was expecting. Now you can see I lost a lot of paint when it was in transit and it spilled. So I'm just going to take it and stir it, but you can see it's already thinner than what it was when I first opened it. It looks so thick and gloppy. And then I could take it back up here. I haven't even added flow aid or anything, you guys. Like, this is so bizarre. I'm going to take the excess off this part of my stir. And I'm going to rinse it off so that my hands don't get paint on them. And I'm going to wipe it off on this. I actually got this to wipe around the edges, but I really don't know that I need to do that yet. I'm going to turn it around and take the flat part, and then I'm going to use it as a scoop to try to get as much out as I can and just put it down in the bottom. That way anything that might be thicker at the top is mixed in with the bottom. And then we're stirring it completely together. So that is all I'm going to do. And then I'm going to take what I have left on here and put it back in the top, because this is where I like to work from. And that's just my preference. And then that's all I'm going to do for that. Now, if it still feels a little thick, because Schipper paints are very fluid, I still go ahead and add a drop or two of straight flow aid. Now, people will say they like to add water. You do you, boo-boo. I mean, it doesn't matter how you like to do it. Flow aid makes the paint more fluid without diluting the paint itself. So when people will talk about, well, my Schipper paints, I have to go over them 2 and 3 times. Maybe it's because you're adding water and not flow aid. Because flow aid makes the paint not diluted. It actually works with the binders in the paint, and it doesn't affect the pigment, and it doesn't dilute it. It actually makes it continue to be opaque and just makes it move better. So it improves the flow. I'm going to put a drop at the top and a drop at the bottom. But it improves the flow of the paint without affecting its opacity, which is the beauty of it to begin with. Now, a lot of people wonder about, you know, do you not use it diluted like it says on the bottle? You guys, I have an entire video on just flow aid. Yes, I know what it says on the bottle. Please, I mean, I do read. And I mean, I know that might be a shocker, but I have a diluted flow aid bottle right here for that purpose. But these are more fluid paints, so it's not the same as what you're working with in other situations. So different situations, different technique, right? All right, now I'm going to take a smaller little paint stirrer. This is the Tamiya one. I have not been able to find it for Ashlyn to carry in the store yet, but as soon as I'm able to, we're able to get it, we're going to have one like this too, hopefully. But I'm stirring the top, and then I'm stirring the bottom, and getting that flow aid just completely mixed in. Then again, I'm going to take what's in the bottom, because this is thinner at the top, right? And I'm mixing it in, and then back and forth to make sure we've got a consistent fluidity between the two. It's going to be a little thicker at the bottom than it is at the top. And then I will scoop this off. And I will take something like the bigger stirrer and scoop it out and take it back to the bottom again. Now you're wondering why, why am I putting so much down at the bottom? because I don't want this to spill at the top. I don't want it to be so full that it like it's drippy, or, you know, it's too fluid or whatever, and it starts getting drippy. Drippy, that's another one of my words. It's not, but okay. So now if I've got messy around here, I'll take this little damp corner of my paper towel and I can just clean up anywhere that I might have some wet paint that might cause my paint pot to stick together. These are not like other paint pots. They don't stick together like other paint pots. But now my paint is perfect. Even if it did not arrive in perfect condition, it is perfect. So now I'm going to check some of these others that I did not check last week. And we're going to see if there are any that are dried up enough that I might could demonstrate a little bit better. So this one, I don't know if that's dry. Let me touch it with something. Let's touch it with a paintbrush. It's thick. It's kind of, you know, it's really thick, but it's still fluid enough to work with. And that is exactly, I would do exactly the same thing. I would take this out, put it down there, mix it together, add flow weight if I need to, but first I would remove any dried paint, just like that. And before I stir a thing, that dried paint's coming out of there. But yeah, all that's going to come out and go down in the bottom. That's really weird. So I had this perfect example and now I'm so confused about why it's not like that now. All right, so let's take a look at the palette and then we're going to talk about what to do if you run into the situation and you need customer services help from Schipper. But first, don't you hate when I do that? I forgot I wanted to swatch this paint because it is a yellow and we need to see how it's going to do. Oh, it's so perfect. It's so dreamy, creamy now. Okay, so that one's still wet. I'm going to try to avoid it. But let's take a look at this palette because this is the trickiest palette of all tricky palettes because it is all either what would be considered streaky paints with the deep browns, and it's also got all of the typical transparent, translucent reds, oranges, yellows, greens that we would be avoiding in any other company. I would never buy this kit from anybody other than Schipper probably. There might be one or two others that I would purchase something like this from, but this one is just so gorgeous. And I'm going to tell you the reason I got this kit is, and it may seem very morbid to some people, but this painting reminds me of the part of the creek where I found my son when he died. But saying that and keeping in mind that I grew up playing in that creek, and some of my best memories as a child were wading in the creek with my cousins and my dad taking us all in the back of his pickup truck like a bunch of hillbillies, and my mom hated it. But at family reunions, we'd all pile up in the back of my dad's pickup and he would take us down to the middle of the 300 acres that he and my mom owned, and we would all wade through the creek to the waterfall and we would play and whatnot. And when I found my son, it was probably, gosh, 50 yards, maybe if that, from where we used to actually get into the creek and start wading. So this painting is a beautiful rendition of what that would look like in the autumn. Over 8 years later, since the day that that tragic event happened and I was there, that was the last time I have been down there. So since I cannot bring myself to go back down there, and I will one day, but I want to freeze the beauty in my memory of the beautiful memories that I used to have and not the negative memory that I have of that location. So I hope that makes sense. I'm trying to make it more of a positive place than a negative one. And hopefully it will be more cathartic or therapeutic instead of, negative. So, all right. Having said that, the palette is stunning. It is beautiful. It is every warm, beautiful color you can imagine. There are 29 colors. So as far as translucent, number 1, number 2, and number 3 are the only ones that I'm seeing the little paint pot lid through barely. I'm barely seeing that. And I know there are a lot of my members on the group who have done this painting probably, and they may have a different opinion on it. And I am seeing some streaky paints, but these had set up so much that when I swatched them, I was, having to work with them a little bit and reconstitute them. So I'm hoping once these boards are lightly gessoed with clear gesso, and that I'm able to, bring them back like to perfection with the flow aid and all the things that I normally do to bring back my paint, so that I'm not going to have any issues at all. So now let's talk about customer service. What happens if you get paints that are dried up, if they are not exactly what they need to be, if they have spilled in transit, if you have something wrong with your kit in general? What you're going to do is you're going to go to the website that I'm going to put in the description below for the actual shipper company. They have a customer service section that will have spare parts. Once you go to spare parts, it's going to ask you what the item number is, and you're going to put in the item number off the box of the product that you purchased. And please keep in mind that you need to have purchased this item within the last 3 years, which I think is plenty of time. I mean, 3 years is way over what I would have expected. If it's something that's retired, then they cannot provide you with a replacement set. But let them know what it is that you need. If it's defective or something is wrong with it, you put in there what it is and like if it's a paint strip, let them know which paint strip, and then they will send you a new one. And that is it, you guys. If you have issues, you can contact them by email, but that is how simple it is to get what you need. I did that as soon as I saw that the paint strip had leaked, and I did it mainly because I wanted to be able to tell you what the process was for when you have to do something like that and how you would go about it. It was super simple. So they have already shipped that out to me, and that was a week ago. Within the next day or two, I guess, so it would have been Monday probably, that was already in transit to me. Now, it is coming from Germany, so I'm going to be realistic about how long it will take, especially during the holiday season. We were a week and a half, 2 weeks from Christmas at the point where I put in for that request. I'm not going to be ridiculous about it and expect them to, overnight deliver that to me, but that is something that they're going to provide their customers because that's just how they do. I hope this has been super helpful. I hope it has provided you with a lot of information about what to do if you have any issues at all with your shipper kit. I hope you've loved this particular painting as much as I do. It is just a gorgeous piece, and especially for the people who love the earth tones. And I just can't say enough about this kit or this palette. I mean, even though it is not the bright colors and the jewel tones and those that I love normally, what a yummy, delicious earth tone natural palette. Oh, it is still fabulous. All right, you guys, have a wonderful holiday season, and I will see you back soon.